you say health is going to be my focus. For me, what this does is it sets that theme as a lens that I look at the world through. And then when you're faced with the decision that is a decision point along that theme, it's, man, can I take one step in the right direction here?
Yeah.
And I really think that that's what self-improvement needs to be. It's all about is just one step at a time. Like you said, success is simple habits performed regularly over time.
Yeah.
It's just those simple things. And that's where this whole theming concept, I think, what it's all about, just pushing the needle and then setting up different systems in your life to make it more top of mind and fit in your life.
Welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast, where we provide education and inspiration to help guide you on your journey to look better, feel better, and most importantly, heal better. Hello, and welcome back to the Foundational Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kevin Schultz, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with the man who is normally behind the camera, making me look and sound better than I actually do. I'm here with my good friend, Colton Ward, who is one of my two business partners here at Foundational Health. For the last 15 years or so of my life, I have really focused on self-improvement, organization, productivity, all things that fit beautifully into the fifth pillar of foundational health, which is intention. And I've gotten really good at all of those things, especially organization. Colton, however, takes it to the next level. I'm pretty certain he is the most organized and productive person I have ever met, in fact. And that is exactly why I convinced him to come out from behind the camera to share some of his insights, his secrets, and really the overall mindset that it takes to become highly productive and organized. I can confidently say that without Colton, foundational health would not exist. It would probably still just remain as a dream and a thought in my head. And now for my conversation with Colton Ward. Colton, welcome to the other side of the Foundational Health Podcast camera.
Yeah, this is very strange to be on this side.
I can only imagine. So good to have you, man. Our history goes back to 2008.
2008.
So 18 years ago,
Holy
you
cow.
were what, 7 years old?
I was 7, yes. Wow.
Yeah, crazy. So I had to look that up today. And for whatever reason, for like certain people that come into my office, I remember everything about it. And that your dad was one of those people. So I remember specifically the first day that he came in 18 years ago, and he had hurt his low back when he was out cutting wood.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember him saying like he was skeptical about chiropractic. Mm-hmm. He sat through my health talk and he's like, dude, I'm sold. I not only want to be a patient here, but I want my entire family coming in. And then, of course, that's what led to your mom, your brother, your sister, and you all coming in so many years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny that I feel like that's a common story for chiropractors, right? Is coming in, or for a lot of people that approach it of, my back hurts, I'm going to go get fixed. And that's kind of, I think originally for my dad, it was just planning on, it was going to be him coming in to fix his lower back.
100%, yes.
And crazy how it came from that and him having a couple conversations with you about just overall health and wellness to then sitting through one of your talks and just the switch that made in his mind. And we were, I think, like most families of, tried to be healthy, not really knowing what that meant. And what a crazy transition it flipped to, like, oh no, this is something that we're really going to implement. And there wasn't really, at the time, we were seemingly fairly healthy people and stuff. There wasn't like a huge motivation that way. It was just...
Yeah, no like diagnosis or significant health challenges or anything like that.
Right. How wild that it turned into what it did for the whole family coming in and it kind of defining our life from that. It was a pivotal point in my life for sure when it comes to the focus on health and wellness.
So pivotal. In fact, I've got a little something here that I didn't tell you about. This.
Oh, no.
I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm not being behind the camera. Colton can't focus in right now. But
Wow.
So this is a testimonial that you wrote.
Oh, gosh.
I think it was 18 years ago. It looks about like, 7-year-old handwriting there.
That's about, actually, I mean, my handwriting kind of still looks like that, but yeah. Wow. Okay.
I'm going to read this just because I think this ties into our discussion today, and it really ties into like what you already said, which is like your dad came in for low back pain.
Yeah.
And that is what most people see chiropractic as until they get exposed to what we call the chiropractic lifestyle. Because every aspect of your health plays a role in your spinal health and vice versa.
Right.
Okay, so here's the Colton 7-year-old testimony. Even though I hate the flu, I don't need to worry because of chiropractic. I'm not going to point out the misspellings here.
Please don't.
And Kevin, you are the man. That is my favorite part. You changed my life. I don't need to worry about any sicknesses. So thank you, Maximized Living Chiropractic. Sincerely, Colton Ward with 9 exclamation points.
Oh man, if I could even hold on
awesome.
to that earnestness as a 7-year-old kid. But the funny thing is that I remember that distinctly of why. I mean, you simplify it down to a 7-year-old's mindset, and it's not thinking about trying to set myself up for the rest of my life. My main focus is I was terrified of throwing up.
I actually remember that.
Yes,
Yeah.
a massive phobia. And I learned from you that's okay, so if you live your life a healthy way, you get adjusted, probiotics, supplements, all of these things, then you're gonna be healthier, you're going to avoid getting sick. And I guarantee you, and I remember this distinctly because of such a phobia, I did not get the flu. Did not throw up from the point of starting chiropractic on. Not until older in life, and that wasn't due to the flu, but
Due to some bad personal
due to some
choices.
bad decisions. It was crazy to think back that that was my motivation at the time, and it was simple, but it was enough to really lock me in on being all in with health and the chiropractic lifestyle, as you said.
Yeah, in your family, like really, I think more than I've been doing this for 26 years, as in being a chiropractor. And I think your family, more than any other family that I've ever had the pleasure of taking care of, like you guys exemplify health, and you exemplify like what my ideal patient would be, not only with coming in for regular adjustments, but how you implemented chiropractic care. And obviously a huge part of that, I shouldn't say chiropractic care, the chiropractic lifestyle. And a huge part of that is, of course, for you and David and Amanda, was seeing your parents lead by example. And one of the biggest questions that I get all of the time from parents is, how do I motivate my kids? How do I motivate especially teenage kids? Because my husband and I, or my wife and I, we're trying to make all of these changes, and our kids are just not on board. Our kids just won't listen. So do you have any tips, any secrets there of why? Because Amanda, David also very on board with natural health and keeping their bodies healthy as well. So what do you think the secret was there with your family?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing, and I can give the perspective from the child's perspective. I don't have kids of my own, so I can't give tips on what to do as a parent. But thinking back as a kid, I think it comes down to that, like you said, the leading by example. And you talk about this all the time, because especially as a teenager, I didn't want to be lectured about health and this is what we are going to do and lock us into this healthy lifestyle without it really feeling like a choice for us. I mean, wouldn't have worked with me as a teen.
Well, and not only does that not work most of the time, it completely backfires.
Oh, it backfires. Yeah. Instead, it would be
Rebellion.
I'm going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's a testament to how my parents raised us as a whole, was less of that iron fist, it's going to be this way, more of the leadership that way. But that worked for us for health too, where I got to see my dad, who had, again, gone in just for a back injury, all of a sudden he's doing these max D3 workouts. I remember distinctly them doing the detox systems that you guys did. You guys did some pretty intense detoxes back in the day. And I remember them putting themselves through this, seeing the difficulty of the detox, and then being like, well, there's probably a reason why they're doing it. They didn't ask us or make us do this as well. It was like, okay, if mom and dad are doing this, and I got to see the health benefits that they saw from it, especially my dad, the weight loss that he had gone through and feeling looking much better than he did originally, and say, okay, there's something to this. So from them, that was huge. And then from you, I feel like you explained things to me as a kid that made it make sense, made it apply more to my life. Because you could talk in the larger, more complex scheme of things of trying to set yourself up for longevity, and here is all of the science behind what. I'm like, well, as a kid, that's not really going to mean anything to me.
Yeah,
but
so true.
There were practical things that I could have applied to my life. Now, I won't say that I was certainly perfect. I remember I hit high school and I fell off the wagon a little bit with just more focused on, sports and girls and things that you do in high school. But I kind of if I think back to it, and what could have kind of kept me on the health wagon through all of that was just tying this to more practical benefits of what I was actually facing in my life at the time. I was trying to play football at 135 pounds.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
It didn't work well.
No, it doesn't work well. But I look back and it's like, okay, if I could have had it in my mind of, well, if you eat more protein-rich diets, if you work out in a better way, a more optimal way, and if I would have kept up with the Max D3, things like that, I could have probably put on a little bit of weight, perform better in sports, which was, my huge mindset during high school, of course, and even during school of, well, if you would have slept better, recovered better, well, I would have been going into each school day feeling better, probably perform better in school as well. And then even just the looking better, that's a big thing for teens.
Oh yeah, especially it is at any age in reality, but especially for teenagers.
Yeah. I had some acne things that bothered me, and I did not take a natural health approach to that, which I certainly wish I would have now. But if I could have had more of the motivation towards natural health in that way of here's these practical benefits of looking better, performing better, I think that would have definitely kept me on the wagon more.
And the cool thing is, for me, I get to see this now. I've seen it in your family and so many other families in my office. But now having young kids of my own, my kids are 7, 10, and 11. They love being active. They're all getting involved in sports. And so I get to see everything of what you just said firsthand in practice. And just like your parents did, Sarah and I try to lead always by example. We don't say no, you can't do this, you have to do this. We not only lead by example, but I think a lot of times the problem that parents have with not keeping their kids motivated is they don't give them enough credit when it comes to the education part of it. So certainly, like you said, you can't, with a 7-year-old, you're not going to say, well, how do you want to feel when you're 90 years old?
Right.
That doesn't work. But at the same time, I don't think enough parents do that education piece of hey, this is how this food is going to affect your body. And this is what's huge for my kids. They know because of what we tell them, hey, if you eat this, you have your ice cream treat or whatever it is, pay attention to how you feel. And they do. And as a result of that, just like you didn't want to get sick, they don't like feeling like crap. They don't like feeling that way. And so that doesn't mean they're perfect. That doesn't mean we restrict things, but it does mean that they make better choices because of that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept to tie into is I think back as a kid and it's you're not really aware of your body and how you're feeling, and tying your behavior and your life practices into actually how you're feeling or the outcomes you see.
It's so much so that I think that it's not part of childhood, that then it doesn't become part of adulthood as well. And so for me, sleep was never a priority until I was 40 years old. And I literally never paid attention to really, besides an extreme lack of sleep. Everybody knows that. But I didn't pay attention to okay, if I really focus on this is when I go to bed, this is when I wake up. I want to try to get 7 to 9 quality hours of sleep. Then how do I feel the next day versus when I get 5 or 6, or I go to bed at 1 o'clock and my bedtime's erratic. And so those are things that we educate our kids on. And they literally, like, if we're staying up too late, they are the ones telling Sarah and I, like, Mom, Dad, it's 9:30. Can we go to bed? Like, this literally happened like 2 nights ago. Yeah. So I think that's a huge part of it, that parents don't give kids enough credit, that if they know enough to pay attention to how do you feel the next day after you go to bed at midnight and get up at 6 a.m.
Right.
versus a quality bedtime.
I think it gives them a sense of control, like, having an internal locus of control for them as children, knowing that, oh, I can actually control how I look, feel, how I perform by doing these things and making them aware of that. Because I think, as a kid, it's so easy to just, life kind of happens to you and you're going through it.
Yeah,
but
so true.
setting that awareness, I certainly didn't have it as much as a kid. And you get that as you grow up. But man, if you could set that into your kids young, holy cow, does just the power that it gives them, right?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it absolutely, positively does.
On the topic of keeping your kids motivated towards health, I actually had a question for you and getting kind of your approach to how, with your kids, do you keep them motivated on health when they feel like they're doing things and living life different than the kids around them? I think about, for me, going back to right after getting introduced to the chiropractic lifestyle, and all of a sudden in elementary school, I'm bringing salads packed to lunch every day while everyone else is eating, the cafeteria lunches and things. And I certainly stood out. It didn't bother me all that much, but there were pieces that certainly did. And I remember not wanting to lift according to the football lifting program because I knew how awful it was. And I definitely got made fun of for that because I wasn't doing heavy weighted squats and all of this for fear of my back health. But I feel like that's probably something that holds back kids a lot. Maybe it's getting better as health is becoming more of a normal thing. But with your kids, how do you approach, keeping them motivated when around them they're not seeing kids act the same way that they are?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think, just like so many things, this goes back to what we call pillar number 5, intention. So Sarah and I parent with intention. We live our life by intention. I mean, that is our word for life, is intention. And that's not just like for me, that's not just for Sarah, but it's for our whole family. And our kids are aware of that as well. And so everything that we do is intentional. And how that ties into this is we have regular conversations with them. Like, they know, like, if Teo, Ava, or Caprice walked in here right now and you said to them, Teo, Ava, Caprice, who are you? They would be able to say exactly who they are, because we talk about this on a regular basis. And who they are, they would each say, I'm a child of God, I'm a leader, I lead by example, I'm a protector. So we've got this thing that we do, and they are fully bought into that because they love it. They know what that means. And so the way that ties into this is they know that they're leaders and they love it. And so they look at everything that they do as leading by example. And that doesn't mean if they go to a birthday party, they don't have a piece of cake and ice cream. It's not crazy like that. But they have no problem making different choices than other kids. A perfect example of this, so our kids are homeschooled, so this is, maybe it's a little bit easier for us, of course. We control the environment a little bit more. But Caprice, my oldest, is extremely social. Like, she's just like her mom. And so in her dream world, she wants to be homeschooled in the morning, and then she just wants to go to lunch at the public school so she can hang out with all of her friends. And so she's trying to sell me on this a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, well, I don't even know if that's like a thing. Like, I don't think you can do that, honey. And she's like, well, if you're worried about the school lunch, Dad, I will bring my own, and I will show all of my friends what I'm eating and why I eat it. Nice. And so they have no problem with that for all of the reasons that I mentioned. And then also because we constantly remind them that it's okay to be weird in this world. It's okay to be different, that it really doesn't matter what other people think of you. And that's also something, because it's something that we believe in, we've taught on a regular basis and talk about on a regular basis. They have fully bought into that mindset, and they live it each and every day.
Well, I think that goes back to just giving your kids the self-confidence and self-control in their lives where they're secure with who they are and they don't have to worry about
100%.
Which is so hard as kids. You're always looking around and worried about what others think about you. But like you said, tying or giving that strength, that internal locus of control early on in their lives and letting them know that, you know, they can be strong in who they are. That's probably the number one way, I would say, to break through that and let them live this healthy lifestyle that they choose, and they know that it's good for them, and they know why they do that, even if in the world around them, you know, they don't see it as often. So they might stand out, they might be weird, and that's okay.
And that, like, I do realize, well, first of all, by no means, if you're listening, am I suggesting my kids are perfect and they don't make bad choices? Not at all. They just make better choices a lot of times because of the way that we choose to parent. And then when I do talk to parents about this, like, some of the feedback that I get is, well, that's great, but that's too late for me. Like, my kids are already teenagers and I haven't done any of that. But it's never too late, right? Obviously, it's not going to be the same as when you started out with that mindset when they were 3 years old. But it's never too late to lead by example. It's never too late to lovingly educate, to remind them of who they are. So that would be my encouragement for parents that have older kids. And then if you have younger kids, absolutely start now, because you will be blown away by, like, we started when our kids were 2 years old. Like, if Caprice would pick on her younger sister, even at that age, we would not say, like, hey, don't do that. But we would just, like, Caprice, remember, you're a protector. You're literally your sister's protector. Mm-hmm. Teo kicked his sister the other day. Perfect example of my kids are not perfect. And all I said to Teo is, Teo, if you were at the playground right now and you saw another kid come up and kick your sister in the back because he was upset with her, what would you do? And he's like, I would defend her. And I think he said he would attack him. I'm like, well, not suggesting you should attack
take it back
him
a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got the spirit.
Yep. But those are the conversations that we have. And then, so we just remind them, like, yeah, you wouldn't allow somebody else to do that to her. So why in the world would you do it when you are her protector? That is your job. And so I think having those conversations at an early age, that is something that parents don't think about enough, and they don't give their kids credit enough that they're actually going to buy into that, because it is the right thing, in my opinion, and they're going to believe it, and then they're going to live that out in their life.
It's powerful. I mean, you look at this.
Yeah.
I remember the zeal that I had for for foundational health at that time was incredible. I loved going to the chiropractor, and this was my home for learning about health, and I was so into it to the point of I was going to be a chiropractor.
I remember that conversation every visit. Yeah, we talked about it.
I was trying to learn about what you're doing, and this was my path on life. I was, again, 7 years old, but I had it all laid out. It didn't all work out that way, but it's crazy how this all come around. I remember soon after that, my first entrepreneurial venture was reselling Beyond Organic from Jordan Rubin, which again is
a past guests.
Yeah, which is a crazy full circle moment. But all of these things tied into just that moment of my dad making that choice to, well, maybe it wasn't a choice, maybe it was divine intervention that he hurt his back cutting that wood. But to make that choice that, wow, this is the life that I want for my family, for my kids, and I'm going to lead by example. And both my parents did this, and how powerful that can be for kids at young age, and then goes all the way through to today to starting foundational health with you because of that, because of the passion for this. So it may seem small to lead by example for younger kids, but man, it can be powerful, right?
Absolutely, it's life-changing.
When it comes to improving your health, you've heard me say many times, test, don't guess. Well, I'm excited to announce that here at Foundational Health, we can help you do just that.
Introducing the Foundational Health Blueprint, a very simple at-home lab test and natural wellness program giving you a complete look at your energy pathways, nutrition, stress and mood, the impact of toxic buildup, gut health, and more. If you're looking for one lab test to give you a clear picture of your overall wellness, this is the one. With this test and personalized guidance from our team, you'll have the education and inspiration you need to look better, feel better, and heal better. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on lab testing, and order your Foundational Health Blueprint today. All right, so really everything that we just talked about there, like staying motivated, becoming motivated, staying motivated as a teenager, that carrying over into adult life like it has for you, it all comes down to mindset. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
And I know for you, this is a really big thing. It is for me as well, but carrying that motivation, not only for like eating healthier and exercising more, but just like self-improvement in your life in general. Like that's a really big thing that I've dove into over the last 15 years, and I know you do as well. So what do you do on a regular basis to just improve yourself?
Yeah, no, it's tough. And I think self-improvement is a difficult thing, especially when life gets busy and you're just kind of caught up in the day-to-day.
And a lot of people thinking it's cheesy, like self-help books,
Yeah.
like they get a bad rap sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you can definitely take a more negative approach or negative mindset towards it. But no, it all comes back to mindset, like you said, pillar number 5, intention. Self-improvement for me, the way that I've taken to approaching it, because there's so many different ways, and you see it every year at New Year's. The New Year's resolution is the peak, the top of it, of I'm finally going to make this change and focus on this in my life. And it's also probably the number one thing that gives self-improvement a negative rap, because
I would agree with that 100%.
I mean, New Year's resolutions, they're just bound to fail.
Yes.
That's just kind of how it goes. I still love the idea of setting goals and setting a focus for your self-improvement, but just taking kind of a different approach to it. And the interesting thing is we've had this conversation before. I remember sitting and listening to your intention episode, and you talked about your one word for life. And I'm sitting here thinking the mindset that I use for self-improvement is something very similar, but we've come to it from 2 very different ways. Yours was from the book, right? It's
one word for your year. It's actually, the book is one word, and they talk about one word for the year, but then that led to me like, not only having a word for a year, but like, why wouldn't I have a word for my life?
Right. And setting the intention for your goals for self-improvement with a word.
Yeah.
And I was listening to that thinking, well, for the past, probably since freshman year of college, that's too many years away now, but I've implemented a similar concept that I call theming, which is a similar thing of using a word to set my focus around what it is I want to self-improve on, and setting that theme for a certain period of time. I've heard it talked about where people set a theme for their year, similar to like how you set a word for your year or for a month. For me, I like to do a theme for a season. So I do it based on the change of the seasons of setting a word. Many different approaches to this, but say, for a winter, I want to focus on my presence, be more present and in the moment. The winter of presence, spring of composure, summer of strength.
I love that for so many different reasons. I mean, one, like if you just look at it on a organizational standpoint, if you just say like, oh, I'm going to change up my theme for my life, and you don't have like a time frame set to that, it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Whereas if like, hey, the change in the season, what's my theme going to be here now? That's awesome. So do you set that like all 4 of those like a year ahead of time? Do you think of that, or how does that work?
No, it's interesting how it comes about is usually during the previous season, I'm focusing on whatever it is that season is focused on. But usually there's a word or there's something in my life that I can think about coming up for next season of like, this is something that I know I want to focus on. And like I said, doing it for the seasons, for me, this is the perfect time period. It's basically quarterly. I've got 3 months of time where I set the intention on self-improvement in one area of my life. And just going back to that goal setting and kind of comparing that to a New Year's resolution, where why is this more powerful? For me, it's like it sets a more holistic goal than just, say it's summer of health, rather than this summer I want to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah, I love that.
When you set the hard goal, which hard goals are good as well, but if you set that and you fail, well, then all of a sudden you drop back down, you fall off the health train entirely, or you're watching your weight and, oh no, it went up here and I'm failing to my goal.
Yeah.
With a theme or with a word for life and setting that intention that way, you build a more holistic approach. So you say, health is going to be my focus. For me, what this does is it sets that theme as a lens that I look at the world through. So every decision I get to look at through that lens for that period of time, for that 3 months, it's like, okay, I'm going to come to a decision of, am I going to go home and make lunch today, or am I going to stop at the McDonald's or something like that? At least if I have that theme in mind, and this is what's in mind for that period, it's, oh no, this is the season of health. That's a decision I'm going to try to lean my way towards health. And it kind of just sets up your life in that way and pushes you in the right direction.
I mean, that makes so much sense. And that is what my one word for the year does for me as well. But I will admit that the one word for the year does start to lose power like 6 months in. And then there's many times where I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I've kind of conquered that now, or I've got a really good control over it. And I kind of want to change it up, but I never do because it's my word for the year. So I really love this concept.
Yeah. And really you can find the time frame that fits for you, and there's no hard rule around this. I think the most powerful tool out of all of this is using those, I guess I would say, softer goals, setting a word of intention for a time period in your life. I think that's the biggest thing. The time frame you kind of adjust to what works best for you. Again, there are a couple of reasons of why I do that, but like you said, the hardest thing with self-improvement in general, and the hardest thing with setting goals like this, is keeping top of mind.
Yeah.
So for me, it's helpful to shorten that time period a little bit to seasons like I do, but also I implement all sorts of practices to try to keep this top of mind. I know you do similar
That's exactly
things.
what I was just going to ask, what you do for that.
Yeah. And this gives a little bit more practicality to it, because you could say, I mean, just like a New Year's resolution is you say at the outset, but then if you never think about it again until it's the end of whatever period you decided and then you failed, well, then it wasn't making any realistic change. So it's something that needs to be top of mind on a daily basis.
Yes.
For me, there's a couple different things that I do. Journaling is the biggest one. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later too, but journaling being a powerful thing where at the very beginning of my theme, I set out and I write out the outset of, what does this word mean for me? What is the meaning of this theme?
Okay.
And I kind of write out paragraphs of, this is what it is, this is what I'm trying to do. I then lay out some bullet points of not the hard goals of year of health, I'm going to work out X times. It's more of, if I'm practicing and succeeding in this theme, what does that look like? Here's some practical things of what that looks like. That looks like choosing making my own meals at home rather than going out to eat as more often than not. Means working out a couple times more a week, setting, what does this actually look like? So I set that intention from the very beginning. And for me, journaling, writing it down, getting it somewhere where I can look back on it is super powerful. And then to tie that in, so that's from the beginning, but then at the end of every day, I journal to reflect on, and part of my journaling practice, which is a larger thing, but always at the start is, how was X today? Not did you succeed, did you fail, how was health today? How was composure today? And just a reflection at the end of the day of, man, here's times where I could have been a little bit better. Here's opportunities that I could have improved. Here's where I was really good and I did these things. Keeping that as something where I know at the end of the day I'm going to reflect on, it puts it in mind during the day too. And then at the end of the theme, at the end of the season for me, I write up a reflection on how did the theme go? What change did you see? How do you feel different? I've had some themes, some seasons where I look back and I'm like, I am a fairly significantly different person from the beginning of the theme.
That's awesome.
I've had times where I was like, you know what? I think this is something that I need to get back to at a different time. But I think those journaling practices for me are super powerful as a way to keep it top of mind just on a daily basis and to set that intention from the very beginning. But I'm sure you've talked about some of the things that you do to keep your word in mind as well.
Yeah, I do. And I can say, like, you guys are probably starting to see why I said in the intro that Colton takes things to the next level. So, I've never journaled in my life. And like just hearing you describe that, it gives me goosebumps, honestly. And I can see like how incredibly powerful that would be when it's that top of mind. Like top of mind for me is a sticky note taped to my mirror with my word.
Hey, it's whatever helps for you, man. Yeah.
Well, this is next level, and it is powerful.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's why it's like a good, like we make a great team because we have a good balance. Like we're both on the same page, but yet at the same time, like we're also in different seasons of life. So as a parent, when I think about the journaling, I'm like, that sounds amazing. And then I start thinking about how am I going to fit that in? Like, when are my kids going to let me journal? And I could do it. Don't get me wrong. And I'm going to attempt to. But for other people that are thinking that is where more of a simplified approach, which can still be very effective. Like, I am a huge fan of, I always say, sticky notes everywhere.
Yeah.
So you literally buy $1 sticky notes at the dollar store and you just write your word on that. That goes on your mirror, goes on your fridge, it goes on the dashboard of your car, wherever you're going to see it on a daily basis. And then for me, I've got a vision board. I always print out a beautiful picture of my one word. I have it as a theme on my phone many years. Yep. And so there's all kinds of things that you can do, but you just want to put it in places that you're going to see it every single day. But absolutely, if you can then take that to the next level, even if it's not a daily journal, but getting in the practice of journaling, I think that's absolutely enormous.
For sure. And there's no one size fits all, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm in a very different stage of my life. I have more time for these things. But to just get the little kick in your mind in the middle of the day when you're stuck in the day-to-day, you just don't focus on the things that you set as the intention for, a month ago, whatever it is, because you're locked in and there's so many things, there's so many fires burning during the day. So just have those little reminders. It's a sticky note. Maybe it's a reminder on your phone that hits your phone every day at a certain time.
Yeah.
And all that does, like I said, for me, it just reminds me that, hey, there's this lens that I'm supposed to be looking at my life through right now. Remind yourself of that, and then when you're faced with the decision that is a decision point along that theme, it's, man, can I take one step in the right direction here?
Yeah.
And I really think that that's what self-improvement needs to be. And it's all about is just one step at a time. Like you said, success is simple habits performed regularly over time.
Yeah.
It's just those simple things. And that's where self-improvement needs to come in. And that's where this whole theming concept, I think, what it's all about, just pushing the needle in the right direction, right? And then setting up different systems in your life to make it more top of mind and fit in your life. Sticky notes or journaling or whatever it is.
And of course, the more that you focus on these things, the easier
Absolutely
it becomes. And so that's something that goes back to like our New Year's podcast, the number one secret for staying on track with health is just simply feed your mind.
Yeah.
And this goes this fits perfectly into that. And of course, with self-improvement, like a lot of people do think about like self-help books. And so I'll throw out a couple that I was just thinking about as you were talking. The Success Equals Simple Habits Performed Consistently Over Time. That really comes from like one of my favorite books that I ever read, which is called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Simple read, simple concept, but so incredibly powerful. Yeah. And then I think honestly, this is probably the number one best-selling self-help book ever, and one that I've probably listened to. I've never read. I've audio listened to a dozen times maybe, which is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
But before I even started to focus on, or before I even started to listen to books like that, it was more of like a daily focus on like, okay, I want to improve my life. This is what I'm going to do. And then because that was top of mind, all of a sudden it led like to me finding those books and talking to people about books and self-help. So
I want to actually pick your brain on this because this is something I've thought about for a long time. And I love to read but self-help books for me, I have challenges with.
Okay.
But my biggest challenge being I read the book, I get super motivated as I'm reading it, but then just like everything else, it kind of falls to the wayside. How do you take what you read from a self-improvement book or something that you're learning from? How do you take that and actually apply it? Are you taking notes while you're doing this?
I think that's fantastic, but I follow, man, I can't even think of his name right now, but it's one of the original gurus in the self-help motivational speaking world, where his advice was always to make your car your mobile classroom.
Okay.
And so I took that to heart fully. Like I don't hardly ever, unless my family's in the car, listen to music in the car. I certainly don't have like radio on ever. It's either podcasts or audiobooks. And so I don't take notes, but if I listen to, and this is what happened with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, like I listened to it and I loved it. Like every concept made sense. But at the same time, I knew that I wasn't going to change my life because of like that one listen. And that is why I've listened to it a dozen times probably.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's incredible still, like it's been probably a year, maybe even 2 now since I last listened to it. Yeah. But every single time that I listen to it, something else stands out to me. So when I find something that I love, I'm not the guy that like a lot of people, like they've got a goal of reading 52 books in a year. Like, I don't know if you ever see that, like crazy goals, or a dozen books, 1 a month for a year. Like, that's just not me. What makes sense to me is if I find a book that makes sense and I love it, I'm going to listen to that one over or read that one over and over and over again because I know that's what's going to make it stick.
Yeah. And I can imagine every time you listen to it, there's some piece that you are able to apply in your life. I think that's the important thing for me is I feel like I'm not going to get anything. I mean, it makes me feel good, and I feel like there's probably benefit of having the ideas from a book in the back of your mind, and that maybe pushes you in the right direction towards making decisions. But I'm like, I want action. I want to see what can I get out of this book and actually apply it. I've started, if I'm reading a book like that, would actually take notes. I'll read it, read a chapter and take notes afterwards of some of the applicable things.
Yeah.
And then it's more than just taking notes, because it could die on a page as well, as, okay, now let's try to turn this into a habit. Let's try to make a system out of this in my life to actually apply some of these things. That's exactly what we're talking about here is getting all the knowledge, getting the mindset, and then, all right, let's put this into practice, right?
Yes. Nutridyne is my _1 choice for the vast majority of my family supplements. I'm a huge fan of nearly everyone taking what I call the foundational 4 supplements: a multivitamin, a spore-based probiotic, omega-3 fish oil, and vitamin D3 with K2. The large majority of people are deficient in many of these nutrients, and they are the building blocks to gut health, immune system strength, brain health, heart health, and every other aspect of your health. Don't fall into the trap of chasing symptoms with supplements, and instead start to rebuild your health with the foundational 4. We partnered with Nutridyne so that you can save 15% on every order, and not just with the foundational 4, but all of your other supplements as well. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Shop Brands, and then Nutridyne, set up your account, and you're all set to automatically get 15% off all orders. Now let's get back to the Foundational Health Podcast. Shifting gears a bit into how do you put that into practice with, like, I always think you can't separate organization and productivity. So everybody wants to be productive. You're the most organized person I've ever met in my life, I think times 10. It's like mind-blowing to me. And I've always thought of myself as being a very organized person. But the reason I say you can't separate the two is based on conversations that I have with people all the time, like where they want some health advice, and I'll say like, hey, if you incorporate this or this and this, and they feel like their life is chaos. They're all over the place. Yeah. And ultimately that comes down to organization. And if you're not organized, you're not productive. So what are some of the things that you do on a regular basis to make sure that you are productive?
It's like you said, where productivity ties into reaching those goals and how you put your mindsets into practice and how you actually achieve self-improvement. Because like you said, if your life's disorganized and things are falling apart and you can't make the time for these things, well, self-improvement is going to fall to the wayside to all the other chaoses of life. I can't say that I have it all figured out by any means. And like you said, we're at very different points in our life, and I don't have the life of a family to worry about as well. But as I've kind of gone through school and work and everything else, there's kind of a model that started to build in my mind of what does productivity kind of mean to me, and how can I actually live a more productive life, and what are the tools, mindsets, and practices that I do there. So I call it 3-6-5 productivity. It's 3 fundamentals of productivity, 6 lifestyle practices that tie into those fundamentals, and then 5 tools that help you put it all into practice.
Okay.
So I can kind of start there for me, the 3 fundamentals that drive productivity is discipline, organization, which we talked about a little bit, and then motivation. So it's hard to avoid the fact that discipline is an important part of productivity and reaching goals, health goals, everything else. I say it's 50%. 50% of it, it's going to be the willpower to get those things done. You have to build up that discipline. But it's something, like you said, that we can practice a little bit. You and Aaron talked about this quite a bit when it comes to biohacking, microdosing stress, doing hard things. Yeah. These are the things that start to build discipline. But that's 50%. Like we were saying, 50% of that is organization, is organizing and designing your life around the goals that you're trying to accomplish. I feel like for me, this helps me cheat the discipline a little bit. Okay. That's what kind of a lot of the rest of these lifestyle practices and tools are about, is kind of taking the burden off of discipline and just making life more designed in a way where you're organized towards productivity, towards health, towards self-improvement.
I like that mindset.
Yeah. And then the motivation, the why behind it all. The big why. You talk about this all the time, setting the bigger picture. I know for me, and if my family's listening to it, they'll laugh as I'm saying this, because productivity for me in some points of my life has become the end itself. While productivity is not the end, the productivity is the means towards a more meaningful end.
Okay.
So setting that motivation, that why of why are you trying to live your life more productively? Why are you trying to put these things into practice? Why are you trying to work towards self-improvement? Otherwise, you're going to get pretty caught up in just doing the thing, doing the tasks, doing the habits, while you want to be focused the whole time. And what's that bigger picture? What's that motivation? That certainly helps with the discipline too.
So you got the 3: discipline, organization, motivation.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yes. So for me, those are kind of the 3 fundamentals, the pillars that underlie all of productivity. And those are kind of higher level things. So for me, it's like, okay, now I need to kind of apply that into my life. How can I put in some different lifestyle practices to make me more productive and achieve some of these mindsets? So for me, number 1 is setting yourself up for success. I think this is a big thing for organization, but making your next task or your next health habit easier to start. Because often starting is the hardest thing.
Absolutely.
And once you're into it, well, then it becomes a little bit easier, and you're into the practice, whether it's doing this task at work or doing a healthy habit of some sort. You've talked about the wellness room. You had a name for it, didn't you? The wellness room in your house.
Oh, it has changed names multiple times. We've had the healing room, we had the wellness room, we've had the biohack room, but
yes. But that room being kind of the epitome of this is having everything that you need for the health practices that you want to do in one place, really easy to get started. I think was it with Aaron? No, it was at your health workshop. You were talking about dry brushing and how you made that easy for you to start doing dry brushing, because you nailed up something to put your dry brush right next to your shower.
My dry brush, which dry brushing, if you're not familiar, is great for lymphatic flow. You're literally dry brushing your skin. My dry brush was in my closet right next to my shower. Well, I was probably doing it once a week at best case scenario. I'm like, dang it, I forgot to dry brush again.
Yeah.
And then my new mindset is I don't care what other people think of my home.
Perfect.
Doesn't mean it's a cluttered disaster, although it kind of is sometimes with our kids. But I don't care in the sense, like, before my mindset would be like, well, there's no chance I'm going to hang a dry brush on the wall in my bathroom that guests might be using and wonder what in the world it is. But that's now what I do with everything. So I put a nail in the wall right next to my shower. My dry brush hangs on it. So there's no chance I can get into the shower without seeing that dry brush.
Yeah.
And it has led to about a 95% success rate for dry brushing before I get in the shower, which is what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely. And that's something where the importance of keeping something top of mind too.
Yes.
But also just, it makes it easy to start. You don't have to take that one extra step of going into the closet, opening it up, grabbing the dry brush. For me, I've been trying to get in the practice over the last year of writing to start my day. But sitting down and writing in the chair, as any writer will tell you, is the hardest thing to do. Doing instead where I know the night before I set up my computer, I set it all up into the spot that I'm going to write in the morning. Everything's all prepared. The writing software is all opened up. All I have to do is sit in the chair. And that's where the 50% discipline comes in. Because man, it would be a lot easier to just, skip and say I'm too busy and do something else. But 50% of it is the organization of just having it there and making it easy to start.
So huge.
And number 2 for my lifestyle practices, this kind of goes along the same things, is just removing the friction in your life. The little points of friction for doing while achieving your goals and doing what you want to do. There's so many different areas of our life where making a healthy habit, there's just little friction points to make it a little bit more difficult, just a little bit more annoying. And man, does that tilt the balance towards, maybe I'm not going to do that today. Maybe I'm not going to cold shower today, or whatever it is that your goal is. These things add up. All of these friction points add up over time. So being conscious of those is huge, and trying to take away that friction makes doing those habits a lot easier. I think a big example of this, it's something I've tried to do a little bit more recently, is meal prepping.
Okay.
Eating healthy. There's so many friction points when it comes to the shopping that's required, the cooking every single day to cook your own meals, doing all of the dishes and all of that. I think meal prepping is the perfect example of removing friction, where it's, all right, we're gonna, one day a week, we're gonna do all of that hard stuff. And then when it comes to actually eating and doing the act of eating healthy, it becomes way easier during the week, because you just take out your prepared meal box of whatever that you meal prep for the week. It's warming it up. It's one dish to clean. That friction point is removed, and all of a sudden eating healthier becomes way easier.
The number one question I get, and I can say this confidently, is how do you stick with your eating healthy habits? Because nutrition is the number one thing everybody's interested in. And everybody, I think, expects my answer when it comes to nutrition and meal prepping and what we do as a family to be like this extravagant thing. And it is the polar opposite for all of the reasons that you just mentioned. Our meals couldn't be more simplified as a family.
Right.
Like each meal, we have one protein choice, and then we have steamed or grilled vegetables. And literally, that is it.
Yeah.
Every single meal, that's it. And then from there, you get to make it your own. So like you create your own bowl, your hot dish bowl or whatever, where you're adding different spices and adding different sauce. And so that's a perfect example. Like that is when Sarah and I were single, our meals were complicated. We were trying to do recipes. And I think that's the trap that most people fall into. And it's just not sustainable for most over time. I think it's a great thing to do every once in a while. And then also leads me to I talk about the never leave home without your cooler.
Yeah.
And so I have removed the friction so much in that I just don't eat hot food ever when I'm at lunch at work or anywhere. Like I eat cold burgers. Those are my protein bars. I eat hard-boiled eggs. It's just everything simplified. Otherwise, there is no way, like if over my lunch hour at work I had to go make all of my food, go heat it up, I'm just not going to do it. And so I've never called it like removing the friction, but I absolutely love that concept.
There's nothing more frictionless when it comes to eating your lunch during the day than going down to McDonald's and going through the drive-thru.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how can you battle that, where it's like, man, it's so easy just to do that? I was going to mention that too, of your bring a cooler. Well, that removes the friction of having to cook, and that battles then the simplicity of just going down to McDonald's and grabbing something.
Because, I mean, in reality, you still got to, like for me, I would have to leave my office, jump in the car, drive to a fast food place. And so, like, a lot of people eat fast food to save time. Well, I guarantee that meal at McDonald's would cost me a lot more time, a lot more energy than actually just bringing my cooler.
Absolutely, making it easier and less friction to do the healthy thing.
Yes.
Set yourself up. I mean, help yourself is basically what this is about.
Yeah.
We are simple creatures when it comes to our day-to-day lives, where we're going to try to pick the way that's less friction.
Yeah.
Friction when it comes to time, a lot of it, when you talk about your simplified meals, friction when it comes to like mental exertion of trying to plan together this perfect meal, go out shopping and you know, that's a lot of mental exertion where it's just like, or simplify your meals a little bit to one protein, one veggie source, you know. Yeah. And that removes the mental friction too, because these are things that you can do to just make it a little bit easier for yourself to do these healthy things, to set these goals. So number 3 that I've got is, and this is something that came out of COVID for sure, being locked into a small apartment in the middle of Minneapolis with 4 guys and just not being able to go anywhere, doing classes from home, working from home. Separating your spaces is just it was an important thing back then, and I think I kind of carry it through to today, where, you know, there's a different space for sleeping, there's a different place for work, there's a different place for exercise, relaxation, eating, all of that. During COVID, there was a time where all of that was done in the bedroom. All of that was in my room. And man, is that such a tasking thing on your mind. And it meant switching from meal mode or relaxation mode to I need to study and I need to get some work done is so difficult because it's all in the same place. So separating those spaces, it makes it easier to get into the mindset of the thing that you're trying to experience. You've talked about this. There's many, many different drawbacks of this, but not working, scrolling, watching TV in bed. Your bed is for sleeping.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful change that you can make for your sleep, especially because then otherwise it's hard to get into the relaxed state that you need to get a good night's sleep.
Absolutely.
If you've been putting in the late night hours laying in bed on your computer. Then your mind is trained that this isn't just a place for rest, you know.
Not to mention the blue light.
And then the blue light, and yes, everything else too. So there's many different reasons. And I think your wellness room is also a way that you've applied this too, is there's a certain place for all of these health habits and stuff. And when you're in that room, that's what it's about. It's about health.
Yeah, so I was going to say that environment.
The environment. The environment's super important. When you're in that location doing that thing, that is what you're focused on. And that goes right into my next point of avoiding task switching and multitasking. For productivity, I think this is a huge one that really kills people's focus, is jumping between many different things. No matter how good you think you are at multitasking, humans are just proven not to be great.
This is my number one downfall, without a doubt.
And mine too. Everyone's is. You're so multifaceted and focused on many things at once. But focusing on the goal that you're trying to achieve at that time, and really locking into that is super powerful. So a good example of that is going to the gym. You're working out. How many people do I see, and myself included, I fall into this, but checking your phone between sets.
Yeah.
For me, it's not
scrolling.
For me, it's not scrolling TikTok and stuff. I'm checking an email. I'm like doing work in between. But man, switching my mindset from I'm gonna have an intense workout where I'm really focusing on mind-body connection and really focusing on all these reps, but then switching to okay, I gotta answer this. It's just completely derails the workout that I'm trying to have here. Setting that mindset of when you're doing this thing, then you're locked in and not multitasking, switching between tasks, because there's friction that happens there that really drags you down and also stops you from being 100% productive at the thing you're doing every time you switch.
So true.
And there's a cost to that every time you do it. I think about it during my work day I used to have 2 monitors where the second monitor has my email open or my Slack open, and I'm getting messages constantly while I'm trying to focus on something that's really intense focus in work, video editing, whatever it is, and then I split off and have to answer an email. And then I go back, and then I have a Slack that comes in. And that switching is just so costly.
Today, as I was preparing for this podcast and the other one that we're filming today, and I often do this, like when I call it insane productivity mode.
Mm-hmm.
And this is based on Darren Hardy, who I mentioned earlier, the compound effect. I took one of his courses years ago called Insane Productivity. Nice. And so one of the things that I had gotten from that is you shut off all distractions. So I literally, I send a message to my wife. I sent a message to Jacqueline, who's working in my office, because we were working on some things together. I'm like, going into insane productivity mode. If it's an emergency, come knock on the door.
There you go.
And then I do that literally phone goes off, email goes off, everything goes off except that one thing that I'm focusing on. And then this is also something that I got from that Darren Hardy class was I set a timer. So I pull up Microsoft Timer actually, just because it's simple right on the computer. But I'm like, okay, how long do I need to finish this task? And whether it's a 15-minute task or an hour task, I set that timer. And then just something about that. It's a mindset switch for me. I'm like, I've got 15 minutes to finish this, and I just go into that insane productivity mode from there.
That is pretty intense. I don't know that I could set a time I would have that in my mind.
You have to do it in a way that it's not like stressful. Like it's not like so I just do it in, tasks where I know like, okay, this isn't going to create anxiety. It's just going to make me focus more on the task at hand.
For sure. Number 5 that I have is working with your energy states, not against them. Okay. Recognizing where your energy is during the day and trying to design your day as much as you can around those energy states. And this is what I said, where it's just ways to make things easier for you and make the discipline a little bit less difficult. So for me, for a lot of people, the beginning of the day is when you're at the highest energy. So try to pack that time in your day with the things that are going to take the most discipline, whether it's a habit of some sort or it's your most intense mental work. This is why I do writing at the beginning of the day, because I know at the end of the day, if I'm drained, it's going to be way harder to sit down in that chair.
That makes sense.
I've recently started implementing cold showers to start the morning.
Wow, impressive.
I know that's a whole other thing, but there's benefits of doing that in the morning, yes. But partly being, I know that when I'm lower energy at the end of the day, man, I'm not going to do that. I'm not hopping in that cold shower. Absolutely not. So yeah, trying to recognize where your energy states are during the day and try to design your work along that way. I know not everyone can design their schedule in the best way, but seeing where you can fit that in. Where can you fit in the hard habits that you really want to try to work into your life, into the times in the day when you know you have time, you know you have the energy for it, and kind of taking that intentional approach.
Yeah, love it.
And the last one I have, I'm still working, I don't have a great term for this, but man, has it become powerful, is implementing something I call a dump day, meaning one day per week, if there's little tasks, little things that I am pushing back, that I just kind of, we'll do it later. These things add up a ton over time. It doesn't have to be big things, just little things during life. This is the day where, for me, it's every Wednesday. This is where, man, there's this one email that I need to get back to. It hasn't been super pressing, but I kind of keep pushing it back. This is when I put that out. This is when I pay that bill that's been sitting on my counter for a while. This is when there's a leaky faucet that needs to be fixed around the house. And,
I really, really love this one, actually.
It's crazy the difference this makes, because it's so easy to push off so many of these little things that then add up over time. And it's just little aggravators that really, for me, it's adds to my anxiety. It's mentally taxing. But knowing that I've got one day a week where this is where those things get done. It gets scheduled onto that day. We'll get it done. Keeps me on top of a lot of different things that normally would kind of continue to get pushed off.
I had that day yesterday without putting thought into it, without being intentional about it at all. But the reason, for me, I had been putting so many little things off for so long that I'm like, I need to go into the office even though I didn't have to be there and just clean stuff up, because you're right, it just weighs on you. All of those little things add up. So I love the idea of putting this into a weekly practice.
Yeah, I think those things can very quickly become overwhelming, and helps clear up that overwhelm in your mind. It makes you feel a little bit more on top of things.
Yeah, so that was exactly what I was going to say. I see two benefits to this. There's sure plenty, but number one is you clean all of those things up in your life so they don't build up. But then there's also the simple, hey, you don't have to stress about it on a daily basis, because okay, I'm going to put it off, but I am going to finish it on dump day. I like that, actually.
dump day it is. But then, that opens the door to then focus on the bigger things.
Correct. And what doesn't become a distraction then.
Yes, things don't become a distraction. And if you feel less overwhelmed by all of these things that start piling up, you're more able to take on the self-improvement, the health goals, whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, love it. Part of our mission at Foundational Health is researching and partnering with wellness products that we trust. Our one-stop health shop is loaded with brands that we not only have extensively researched, but also trust and use ourselves. You can find everything from low EMF, red light therapy devices, grounding mats and sheets, non-toxic mattresses, saunas that help you detox faster without toxifying you, the best water and air filtration systems on the market, high-quality supplements and foods, exercise and fitness products, our favorite books, and so much more. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Health Shop, and you'll find the links to countless products that you can not only trust, but also many that we have discounts set up just for you. Now let's get back to the podcast.
I kind of tie all of this together and make it more practical, because I'm all about, like, all these ideas are great, but then how do you actually get down to the nuts and bolts of getting yourself to live these lifestyle practices and actually be more productive? And this is where it comes to the 5 tools that I would give it, like 5 categories of tools that I find to be most important for my productivity. Number 1 being a task manager. This is something that you use to organize, keep track of the day's to-dos, keep you on that path. It kind of eases the mental task of remembering what it is that you need to get done in a day. And I almost kind of laugh mentioning this, because if there's anyone that knows me talking about a task manager, they know how important this has become in my life. What I use is called Amazing Marvin, and I think everyone in my life knows the name of this thing and talks about.
I know I do.
Talks about how
I've not
Marvin
used it yet, though.
Yeah. How Marvin is what organizes my life. I implemented it back in college as a way to keep track of my schoolwork. I think a lot of people have different ways of doing this. The task manager was just massive for me. I was working part-time at the time in a marketing job while trying to do school, and then also had own things in my personal life I'm trying to organize. Having a way to categorize out, schedule out the to-dos of all of this stuff was just massive, and I've carried it on now for how many years after the fact. So this is just kind of number 1 in my mind.
And is that strictly phone app, or do you do phone app and then there's a computer app, or how do you incorporate it?
Well, it's a good point, and this is what I should say right off the bat. The way I talk about these tools as categories of tools, because there's so many different applications of this that you can do.
Okay.
And it's not one size fits all. For me, it's this specific app, and it's an app that's on my desktop, that's on my phone.
Okay.
But I've seen so many people that a paper planner is what works for them. But it's just the place where they're able to put down the tasks for the day. Sticky notes. I started with sticky notes on the laptop of organizing all of my schoolwork.
That's often what I do.
Yes. And I know that you also use a system using email as a way to keep yourself.
Yep.
Wouldn't work for me. But if it works for you, then that's what matters. So I want to hit that right off the beginning here, is that I'm going to talk about these things as general tools. It doesn't have to be the application or the specific app or the way that I apply it in my life. It's finding the way that you can fit a tool like this into your life. So Amazing Marvin's the one that I use for a task manager. It's certainly not one for everybody, but this is the one that works in my mind. And that's the important thing, finding the thing that works for your mind, how tasks work in your mind, or with the rest of these tools that I'm going to talk about.
Well, I think I'm finally convinced that I am going to try Amazing Marvin.
I'll set it all up for you. Don't worry about it. Yeah,
yes, then I am going to use it.
Number 2 being a calendar of any sort, and this is fairly common, but just being able to visually map out your day, knowing what's coming, when you're at work, when you're off of work. This is also a great way that you can actually be more aware of, like we said, aware of your energy states, or even just your freedom states of where can I fit in doing tasks, doing self-improvement, doing habits, being able to map out your day in that way, and also just having a reminder of some sort of what your day is going to look like. And you can have that. For me, it's going to be a calendar app on the phone and the computer, because I can get those notifications and things.
I am fairly certain that if Google Calendar disappeared tomorrow, my family's life would crash and burn. Like everything in our life happens through Google Calendar, and it it probably took about 5 years to get Sarah on board with that. But now that she has been on board for the last few years, like, I can't even tell you what that does to our life. We both know where each other is at. We both know any sporting events or anything the kids have going on, because everything goes into our shared Google Calendar. So powerful.
So powerful. I mean, it's and same with tasks, with a task manager is, I feel like it removes the mental burden of trying to keep track of all this stuff in your head.
Yeah, frees up space.
Our days have
Less
gotten
stress.
so busy nowadays between, work, life, kids, everything else. Trying to keep that all in your mind, this is what makes you feel overwhelmed, and like, I can't add on one more thing like focusing on my health.
Yes.
All of these things are ways for me to offload that a little bit and have some organization to it, where I feel like, no, I'm on top of things. I have it all organized out here. Next up I have is a habit tracker. This is something I implemented also a couple years ago, and something that I look at as distinct from a task manager or a calendar. This is a own separate tool, own separate, I guess, application, whatever you want to use to do it, but an own separate way of tracking the habits that you want to start applying in your life.
Okay.
And this is where I think make health your hobby. This is the number one way that I do this, but a way to have those reminders of, for me, it's every night, especially for me, a nightly routine of reading, stretches, prayer, journaling. This task manager is how I keep track of those things, how I give myself a reminder. Big part of it for me is just kind of gamifying a little bit. There's some stats on it. I can see how well I've been at doing these habits over time. But it's something that keeps them top of mind, keeps it as a day-to-day thing for me, is I get those reminders on my phone, and then you start to build that into a habit that becomes like, I don't need those reminders anymore because it's built into my life. But this is a great way to start.
I really like that concept as well. So speaking of gamifying, I mean, to me, it fits right into the make health your hobby, and hobbies should be fun, right? Yeah. So it's fun. And that wouldn't be the case for everybody. Some people stress about those metrics, but for me, it's just it's a fun way to track it.
All right, the next tool that I have is just some sort of note system for your life. Basically, I think of it as like a database for your life, the place where you can keep track of all the things you want to remember, come back to, recipes, exercises, resources related to your goals that are going to keep you on task. But just having that all organized in one place rather than spread out all over. Some sticky notes here, some things are in the junk drawer in a
or go through the wash in your pocket.
Yeah.
Happens to me way too often.
Right. Having some sort of system to keep track of all of the just information floating out that you want to hold on to. A lot of it for me is, like I mentioned, when I'm reading books, this is like if I have notes that I want to take from those things, having one place where I can put all of that. Or motivational quotes or Bible verses and things like that. Having one place. For me, it's an app called Notion, where I'm able to organize all this into a pretty good database where I'm organized, categorized, and all of that. It doesn't have to be that way, but I think that is another thing that just can relieve some of the bloat that builds up of all the things you're trying to remember.
Fully agree. For other Gmail users out there, I use Google Calendar, Google Task Manager, and Google Keep Notes, all in one spot.
Yeah, there is power in having one system for all of it. I don't love all of Google's apps, but the way that they can all work together is pretty awesome.
Yes.
And then number 5, and we already talked about this a little bit, and we could have a whole discussion on the power of journaling for reaching all sorts of goals that you have in your life. But number 5 is a journal of some sort. I mentioned it with theming, but a place that you can look back, reflect, put down your thoughts, share gratitude. Writing has just the act of writing. I mean, the act of writing has such an incredible power to organize and align your thinking and really kind of give a physical presence to them rather than just floating up in your mind of your concerns, whatever it is, if you're journaling about that, or gratitude, or trying to remember where you are and your theme and how well things are doing. The act of writing these things down, super powerful with just kind of aligning all of that and giving kind of.
And you're talking physical journal, right? Or do you do a phone app with it?
For me, I do a phone app for other reasons, but physical journaling, I think the psychological effects of physically writing pen to paper is more powerful. I use an app journal more because of I like that it can track things over time and it reflects everyday journals from the past years on that day, and I can look back.
And the simplicity of your phone is with you everywhere,
Yes.
right? I mean, nobody's carrying a journal in their back
Right.
pocket.
A
so-
big thing for that, again, was just removing friction. The journaling practice becomes a lot easier when I don't have to go find a physical journal, flip open a page. The phone was just something that made it a lot easier for me. And journaling was something where I needed to remove the friction. It's something I do at the end of the day for me. And it's at the end of the day, I'm tired, I want to go to bed. It's way easier to just go to bed and not journal. So removing that friction is helpful. This tool is another just really important one for being able to reach those health goals, stay aligned with your self-improvement, and kind of reflect on how it's going and where you're going from there.
Well, this has been awesome. My mind is like going all over the place right now in good ways of how I can incorporate so many of these things. So you absolutely need to create the 365 productivity guide, journal, whatever it is.
I'll add it to the Marvin. Yeah. It'll be a project on there, sure.
So thank you so much. Hopefully everybody else got as much out of this as I did. And thank you for stepping out from behind the camera to join me here. So in closing, question that I try to ask every single one of my guests: how, Colton, do you make health your hobby on a regular basis?
I mean, really, all of this really helps with that. But if I had to choose like one thing that I try to make health your hobby, which for me, hobby being, how to make it fun, how to make it a habit, a daily thing in your life. Just making it, I grew up in sports, making it kind of competitive sometimes is great.
Yes,
Competitive
I agree.
against myself, competitive against others. I also played a ton of video games growing up, so gamifying things, making it a little bit of a game, really, really helps. For me, it just means like giving one more reason, however small, to do the thing, do the healthy habit. One more reason. So if it's, it's a habit tracking app and it means I can just click that button that said I completed it. It's such a small thing, but it gives one more reason for me to do the thing. For exercising, something that I've done recently, it's an app called Strava, which is like a social media for fitness, basically. And so for me, I've got my family on there that I'm connected to, and you see everyone's, you record your runs or your workouts, or you went out and played pickleball, went out for a hike, whatever it is. It gets posted to that, and everyone can kind of see what everyone else is up to.
I know you had mentioned Strava to me before,
Yes.
but I never really checked it out and asked questions about it, but that does sound pretty amazing.
The community aspect of it is really cool. I think when it comes to a social media, quote unquote, I feel like it's what it's designed to be. Is there's a lot of kudos and like great work and stuff that passes along in the people in at least my like tight-knit community. And then there's a lot of motivation that comes with that. So I have, especially my family, I get to see every day when my parents go out for a walk and I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, I haven't gotten up and done anything today. Or it's been a couple days for me, like, shoot, this is a way to push me into it. I've got a bunch of friends down in La Crosse that are some of the most active people I have ever met in my entire life. They run, it's a run every day, it's hiking, it's climbing. It's crazy what they're up to, and they're always doing something, and that motivates me to
I was going to say, that's got to make you want to be better.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it gives me that little dopamine hit when I get to post that Strava thing of I got my hour-long workout in today. And again, it's just one other reason, one other little motivation to push me in that right direction. Makes it a little bit competitive, makes it a little bit gamified. So yeah, when it comes to fitness, that one is super huge for me. And then a habit tracker for the rest of my health habits and being able to track those things over time. Also just, really great ways for me to make a lot of these things more into a hobby and work it into my daily life.
I didn't anticipate this, but I should have anticipated that even your answer to make health your hobby would involve productivity and organization. So that is
That's kind of the
awesome.
definition of my life for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Well, thanks again for joining me on this side of the camera.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yes, it was. Thank you for listening to the Foundational Health Podcast. As always, if you would like to learn more about making health your hobby, visit our website at foundationalhealth365.com and follow me on Facebook at Kevin Schultz, DC, Foundational Health.